Hello everyone, my name is Stuart Harrison. I live in England, Dorset, county of Dorset, which is on the south coast. And a lot of people seem very confused as to why current events in Europe are happening right now. And I'm going to read articles for you. This is an article I wrote, and the date I wrote it is the 12th of June 2016. Why the West is being flooded with Islamic refugees and immigrants. This all began with me before the Lord brought to mind this verse. He kept bringing it to my mind, so I knew it was something He wanted me to focus on. And of course, after many prayers about it, I continued to ask for the truth in all things, and if I went into any errors with my own mind, my own thoughts, I'd ask Him to unlock my mind to give me His truth, His will for any article being written. I know that if He brings to mind things that He wants me to know about or write about, then it will be His will and not mine that does these things. There's a lot of articles I've written about the White Horseman of the Apocalypse, which leads to the Red Horseman of the Apocalypse in Revelations. But the verse He brought to my mind to begin all of this, I'll read out this article. Why the West is being flooded with Islamic refugees and immigrants, by Stuart Harrison, aka Watchman X, written June 2016. The question: what is the real reason for the West being flooded with so-called refugees/immigrants? And here is my insight for you to take or leave as you deem fit. The most untalked of biblical prophecy is one from Revelations chapter 20, verse 4. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus, Yahushua, and for the word of God, the gospel of the kingdom, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. Now, I'll continue to read the article. I'll read it as I wrote it all those years ago. Now, those who are awake will most likely put the pieces together as I go before they finish this article, but here it goes. It is the reason for the earlier political implementation of political correctness and also proportional representation within government. Now, I know about England has introduced that, and I assume Europe has done that as well, this whole political correctness and proportional representation within governments. These two doctrinal changes are key in helping fulfill the Luciferian plans in Western countries, introduced to society in increments, so we can all be warmed up and brought to boiling point like the lobster in the pot. This is a very important quote that Father brought to my mind after I read a book, a very famous book years ago anyway it was, by Tom Cratman. I think that's how you say his name, the author Tom Cratman. And the book was called Caliphate. A very powerful book at the time and much talked about book. On page 93, it reads, The Europeans were once our slaves. This is from the Islamic point of view. This whole book, Caliphate, is from the Islamic, written from an Islamic perspective. So it reads, page 93, the Europeans were once our slaves. Today it is the Muslims. This must change. We must drive the unbelievers into the deepest hell. We must stick together and hold our peace until the time comes. You can't see anything yet, but everything is being prepared in secret. You must hold yourself in readiness for the right moment. We must exploit democracy for our cause. We must cover Europe with mosques and schools. This was a sermon recorded in a Bavarian mosque, early 21st century. And so the Father had me focus on this Revelations 24 verse, and he kept bringing to mind the beheading. I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus. And it always confused me, and most Christians around the world, let's be honest, they read this and they think, how could that possibly happen, Lord? The beheading of the saints? How can that possibly even be implemented? Well, I've been keeping an eye on this for many, many years. And make no mistake, the beheading laws are already here. They've been made. The beheading laws and the guillotine laws were made a long time ago, but they're hidden now within the laws. And I'll bring these articles up. Unfortunately, I haven't got a clue what I'm doing when it comes to making videos, which is very obvious to anybody who's watching this. I don't even know how to bring images up on the screen. That's how basic and unknowledgeable I am. Anyway, I've got 4 different pictures of the 4 different pages of the laws, and I'll read them out to you. This law came into effect, and it's called HB 1085, Death Penalty, Televised Executions, page 1 of 2. Georgia House of Representatives, 1995-1996 sessions. And it's literally, the law is called HB 1085, Death Penalty, Televised Executions. A bill to be entitled an act. Right. It says on page 1, section 1(3), I'll read it onwards. Well, I'll read the whole thing. To amend Article 2 of Chapter something of Title 17 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated, relating to the death penalty, so as to provide that the Department of Corrections shall make suitable arrangements and provide suitable facilities to allow any public or private television broadcaster to televise executions, to provide that the State Board of Education shall arrange for the televising of executions as part of the public broadcasting of the statewide network of public school educational television stations. And it goes on and on. It's unbelievable, really, that these laws are already in place, and they, once I'd taken screenshots all those years ago, they were quickly taken down, and obviously a lot of people knew about them, and I don't know if anybody else took screenshots of these while they were up on the government websites. And yeah, number 3. Page 3 of this. HB 1274 LC 213643. A bill to be enacted. An act. To amend Article 2 of Chapter 10 of Title 17 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated, relating to the death penalty generally, so as to provide a statement of legislative policy, to provide for death by guillotine, to provide for applicability, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. And lower down it says, be it enacted by the General Assembly of Georgia, Section 1. The General Assembly finds that while prisoners condemned to death may wish to donate one or more of their organs for transplant, any such desire is thwarted by the fact that electrocution makes all such organs unsuitable for transplant. The intent of the General Assembly in enacting this legislation is to provide for a method of execution which is compatible with the donation of organs by a condemned prisoner. That's on page 3. On page 4, it's quite unbelievable, this whole thing, but HB 1274, death penalty, guillotine provisions. All persons who have been convicted of a capital offence and have imposed upon them a sentence of death shall, at the election of the condemned, suffer such punishment either by electrocution or by guillotine. If the condemned fails to make an election by the 30th day preceding the date scheduled for execution, punishment shall be by electrocution. And there's a lot underneath here which they've put lines through. Basically, it's an incredible law. But basically, the laws for these guillotine beheading deaths are already in place. They're already in place. And it's basically the lie that will be told will be for organ transplant, organ donation. So I'll continue reading this article. Do not mistake this for the final law either, but rather one that has merely had the groundwork laid for what is to come. As we know, once something's in place, such as a law like this, it does not take much to adjust it one way or the other. To either soften or harden it, as stated within earlier copies versions of this legislation, educational facilities will be used to televise public executions to the world. The adherents of Islam are basically just one of the main instruments that will be used, or played, taken advantage of by Lucifer, the devil, to implement Revelations 13:7. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. This is the red horseman of the apocalypse event. The war on the saints is the red horseman. And the war on the saints will not merely be against so-called Christians and Jews, but atheists, agnostics, pagans, scientists, New Agers, gays, trans, absolute anyone who will not convert to Islam and or give up their faith in the Creator, Yahuwah, that I am Creator. The truth of Islam is that it was invented by Luciferian factions within the Vatican. That's documented, but really hard to find the documents these days. They're doing a really good job of hiding the origin of Islam. Benjamin Fulford Now that's a name you don't hear much these days, but he was the guy who brought this article to mind. Muhammad was a creation of the Vatican, and it's well worth a read if you can find it. As we all know, there is no one else on earth except Muslims that likes to use medieval beheading as a form of punishment. It will be used to terrify onlookers into accepting whatever they are told. So you may get a lot of converts to Islam in that time, but as with so much of Islam, it's all fear-based. So you are blessed to all who love freedom and liberty, and may the true Creator guide and watch over you in the years ahead. So this is what started me on this entire journey, and this is what Father led me to before he even showed me the truth of the White Horseman of the Apocalypse events. Then the red, basically the red can't happen without the white. And this is the biggest news to Christianity as a whole, and no one else is talking about this in the entire world. The truth is, the White Horseman of the Apocalypse event that Christianity has supposedly been waiting for, and they don't understand it. They're trying to intellectualize it as normal with all these mysteries, and these mysteries are locked up until the appropriate time. And Father unlocked them for me back in 2016. So I'm going to tell you the truth of the White Horseman events. Now, Revelations is a strange book, and a lot of people don't realise that it's multi-dimensional. So I'm going to read another article I wrote on the 5th of March 2022, and it was entitled A Continuation Study of Revelations chapters 6 and 13. Now this should help a lot of your understanding when reading Revelations and trying to make sense of it, because it all seems a bit, here you read a bit, there you read a bit, and come back to this bit, and this is why. Let's not forget, Revelations was handed down from the Heavenly Father to Yahushua, the Messiah, his Son, 1 in 3, 3 in 1 with the Holy Spirit, and then it was given to an angel, and then it was given to John. So it's multi-dimensional. It came down in layers of authority, of rank, until it came down from the spiritual realm to the physical realm. So to fully understand the White Horseman events, basically chapter 13 of Revelations can be laid over the top of Revelations chapter 6 when it talks of the seals and the 4 horsemen. So almost like a 3D chessboard. On top you could lay down one on top of the other. If you were to do transparent paper with the Revelations verses written on it, you could lay it on top of one and on top of another, sorry. So I'll read the article I wrote. It might help to think of parts of Revelations like layers in a 3D chessboard. The top board is the Creator Father, the highest dimension, with the next layer down being the heavenly realm where Yahushua and the angelic exist. The lower board level being earth and the physical. The above is purely to help understand how some revelations can likewise be layered. This does not take account of the realm of darkness that could be thought of in reverse, with earth being the top layer, the 4th dimension, underground dwellings, and then the servants of the earth's surface. This is the horrible thing, really. We've got Satan's got all of these world leaders, these Satanists and Luciferians. They are traitors to mankind. Any Satanist, any Luciferian are traitors to mankind, species of mankind. Don't forget, we're supposed to be in a war against this. Genesis 3, as I said earlier in the earlier video, the dust of the earth. God set apart and he divided mankind and the reptilian demonic. We are at war. And when the devil basically entices mankind, male, woman, doesn't matter, in positions of authority and influence, people that have a say or people that can implement legislations and laws and have power and authority over mankind, these people are traitors to our race, to our species. Doesn't matter, religion's irrelevant. But this entire thing, everything happening in the world right now, is about religion. It doesn't care if you like religion or not. It's about religion. It's about Satanism. It's about Luciferianism. And it's about the implementation, warming mankind up like a lobster in the pot, ready to be slaughtered. And these traitors that lead our governments are the ones implementing the New World Order. And they're doing it on the devil's behalf. And if you don't believe in the devil, I don't know what to say to you. Basically, just pray pray to the Father in Jesus' name for him to show you the truth of the devil. I've had him stand at the end of my bed one night, jabbed my foot with a needle to take a DNA blood sample. Yeah, and yeah, he's real, very real. So all of these government people that take bribes and for wealth and influence and power, whatever reasons they become Satanists or Freemasons for, is sick. They're all traitors. So we have the Revelations 6 first seal being opened in the heavenly realm, signifying the releasing, the correct moment for earthly realm physical events to take place. The first seal being opened, the white horse event is, and I saw and behold a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. Therefore, basically, this is laid on top of, happening simultaneously, as the first one's happening, the first seal being opened by an angel blowing opening a book, blowing the trumpets. They're all events in the spiritual realm. They're events that actually occur in the spiritual realm, the fifth, sixth dimension and above. So the White Horseman verses can be laid on top of this one. And it's Revelations 13 verses 1 and 2. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Those two events are simultaneous. The event has, and still is, taken the physical form of the mass migration of Islamic peoples to flood into all the Western nations and cultures that are, spiritually speaking, diametrically opposed to a Western way of life and belief system. And it's been flooded with the Antichrist faith of Islam. I mean, we already have Christian nations infected with paganism and the spirit of Jezebel. That's rife throughout Christianity. But that has all come about due to satanic and Masonic infiltration into the churches. And so we have Christian nations being flooded with Islam, deceived into thinking that Allah is the same creator when he's not. Only Lucifer has an ego that demands he constantly be told how great he is, Allah Akbar, and rules mainly through fear. Praying 5 times a day. The Creator doesn't need you to pray 5 times a day. He wants relationship, not tradition. The traditions of men are useless. And to continue to read this article, rules mainly through fear. How many Muslims become truth seekers? Really? How many Muslims are spiritual truth seekers? How many go to the Creator for the truth in all things? Very, very few. Unless it's first started off by a direct impact of something that happens to them. They have to be introduced to Yahushua, Jesus, the true Messiah, before they'll budge, before anything will allow to even begin to wedge into their mind of truth. So I'm going to read out the true interpretation that was fully tested in the spirit, Christians, before you start having a go. There's so many articles on this on the internet, and I haven't found one. I've looked at so many, dozens and dozens of them, in the hope that someone else in the world would be talking about this. But every single one of them has it wrong. Every single one. They've tried to intellectualize it instead of asking the Father for the truth in all things. And I don't know. Obviously, I can't tell how they've arrived at their conclusions. But usually it's through just willpower and trying to intellectualize things. And you can't intellectualize mysteries. These are special mysteries that were locked up until the time was right. And Father has opened my understanding. He's literally unlocked my mind to understand these things. So I'm going to give you the true interpretation of the White Horseman of the Apocalypse verses, and here we go. Revelations chapter 13 verse 2. Who or what the beast really is, and the picture language vision explained. So the title of this article was Revelations 13 Beast, and what it really was that the Apostle John saw in his vision, part 1. Biblical Words Concordance, original meaning. So I've got, and the beast which I saw, it means bestial men, hunters of wild beasts to destroy them, a metaphor preparing destruction for men. Was like, similar to, or resembled. Unto a leopard, Asiatic and African in origin, with light brown to dark brown skin, having black spots. This is the concordance meaning of these words and sections of verses. And his feet were as, means foot, feet, legs, both of men or beast. Often in the Orient, one put his foot on, vanquished of disciples listening to their teacher's instruction are said to be at his feet. The next section, the feet of a bear. A bear as obstructing by ferocity and his mouth, i.e. the mouthpiece, voice. The next section of the verse is, as the mouth sounded like spoke words of a lion equals a brave and mighty hero. And the dragon equals a dragon, a great serpent, a name for Satan. Gave equals gave, granted, put. Him his power equals power, mighty work, strength, and his seat equals throne, position of great power, leadership. And great authority equals power, authority, right, liberty, jurisdiction, and strength. So after writing down all of this and then finding the exact concordance meaning of all these words and phrases, Father basically allowed me to see what the true White Horseman of the Apocalypse prophecies were saying. So the conclusion as to what the Apostle John actually saw in his picture language vision as he was standing on a beach looking outwards, Revelations 13:1, as I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. This is the true interpretation. For anybody who's confused about how on earth these beheadings could come about, Revelation 24, how could that really happen? Well, this is how. The White Horseman of the Apocalypse event, which has already happened and is still dragging on today. This is the interpretation. The mass of people that I saw travelling across water via boats and ships were light to dark-skinned and full of fervour. They had been prepared and trained to fight. They were mostly Asiatic and African in descent, with a various minority of black-skinned people. They were a religious people that had been trained for warfare, and they had been told, proselytized, that they would become conquerors. Therefore, they had the overbearing personalities of those expecting to become conquerors, and were chomping at the bit to begin the fighting. They were fully supported and assisted by Russia, which had aggressively held its ground and halted the NATO-EU coalition from further advancements. Vladimir Putin, who has a successful military background, spoke for Russia and was rewarded with his presidency by the devil, by Lucifer himself. And I'll continue to read this article because a lot of people are very confused as to how could Putin be responsible or somehow involved in what's going on in the world today. Where do you think all of this communism and socialism, Marxism in our educational facilities in the West has come from? It's KGB implemented. They know it takes a whole generation to affect these people, and it does. And the very proof is all of these people in the Palestinian marches and all of these strange social ideas that, let's face it, are traitorous, and they should all be put in prison for all these teachers in universities and colleges teaching anything like this, critical race theory, any socialism and Marxism. They are subversive. They are subversing governments in the West. They are all political traitors to our country, infecting and putting a plague in the mind of the people. So, I'll read this article, finish it off. Note, it does make complete sense that President Putin would support the Muslim invasion of the EU, NATO countries in order to cause chaos and destruction of what has become his nation's enemies. Very clever to use non-Russians as his actual fifth columnist armies. Can't help but admire the tactics, very Sun Tzu. Also obvious to those awake that the EU so-called leaders that also pay homage to Lucifer, not his real name of course, although part of a different faction, all vying to be the ones in control when the shit hits the fan. And ones in control would allow the Muslims in via immigration policies. After all, they get their orders from the same boss. So, in the physical, political world, they all make the world's a stage. They're all they're all playing their part, but they're all part of the same club. They're all Satanists and they're all Luciferians, and they have no control over their own governments and policies because their boss tells them what to do. And if they do not follow the orders they get from the higher ups that run these governments, they end up on the satanic ritual slab. Okay? And then they get cloned or replaced and lose their office. It's as simple as that. They have to follow orders from their bosses. Presidents, it doesn't matter. President of a country, Prime Minister of a country, that just means you've achieved the first rung of the ladder. That's all that means. You've finally got your step onto the first rung of the ladder. Up to that point, it's just a race to become a leader. So this is the truth of what's happening in the world today, and this is why it's happening. Is it a surprise to anyone, really, that the West has been hit with all of these things all at the same time? This was planned decades and decades ago. This is how it was able to become prophecy in the first place. Because we have a creator that lives outside of time. So if he wants, he can just go forward in time, see world events, see exactly what the devil, his wayward creation, is going to implement and how exactly he's going to do it. Which is how, of course, he knows exactly how to write prophecies and give prophecies to the prophets, because he's already seen it. And so there we go. That is the White Horseman of the Apocalypse. That is how beheadings of the saints will occur. And it's amazing to me that Christianity has missed the entire event of the White Horseman of the Apocalypse. Already happened. Thank you for listening to what probably is a long video. And I'll continue next with the Red Horseman of the Apocalypse event, which I believe has already happened, which is why everything's heating up now to a powder keg. The Red Horseman of the Apocalypse event, if it hasn't already happened, then it surely is beginning to. So, and another reason why Putin is involved in this. Incredible, really. This whole thing was kicked off when Russia bombed Syria. Russia bombed Aleppo in 2017. And even though there were some Syrian refugees that were ahead of the game and they could read the writing on the wall and see what was coming, some of them were trickling through. The main mass migration started with the Syrian refugees from the bombing of Aleppo. That was when the floodgates were opened. So Putin was the beginner, was the starter. And this is what it also means by the feet of a bear. And his feet were as the feet of a bear. Because the image of the leopard beast with the different colours and with the feet of a bear means the feet were what initiated the movement. The feet are what gives it its movement. So the White Horseman of the Apocalypse event was started when the bear, Russia, bombed Aleppo back in 2017. And the strangest thing is that most Christians expected the White Horseman of the event, the White Horseman of the Apocalypse event, to be like a 3.5-year event. We didn't know it was going to be a 7-year event. The 3.5 years, the 1260 days, is for the Red Horseman of the Apocalypse, and the black and the pale. But the White Horseman of the Apocalypse was a 7-year event. And from 2016-17, whenever the bombing of Aleppo took place, until now, 2024. So there we have it. So, Yah bless, to all truth seekers out there, and anybody confused by what's going on in the West and why it's exactly happening. Thank you very much for listening, and yeah, there we go. The next article I write, the video I make, will be about an article I wrote, The Red Horseman of the Apocalypse. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.